Much for joining us. It's 2 p.m. Let's talk some business. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you at this time. Nigeria's daily petrol consumption drops to 52 million liters. That's according to the NMDPRA. Stakeholders seek 20% tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. Asian stocks snap a losing streak. Yields hit fresh peaks. On our interview segment today, well, we'll stay with Nigeria's economy amidst thriving economic challenges. Transcorp's half-year revenue surges by 19.2 billion naira. Also, we'll talk more about the outlook of the company as they are coming together with a consortium to acquire 60% stake in Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. Very important, particularly at this time where the country is talking about improved power generation. On the flip side of the show, we'll continue our conversation with the ministers, the new ministers. Specifically today, we'll stay with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. And the minister in that place is Dr. Uzoka Anete. We'll talk about all of the expectations from that sector, policy issues, what is expected. That's on the second half of the show. But first, let's bring you up to speed with news making headlines across the world of business. Nigeria's midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority has revealed that Nigeria's average daily consumption of PMS, otherwise known as petrol, dropped to 52 million liters in July compared to 64.9 million liters recorded at the end of June 2023. The agency added that the land-based stock and closing stock less a dead stock of petrol was 1.12 billion as at the end of July 2023, while marine stocks, which includes berth and offshore availability, was 521.04 million liters. The land-based day sufficiency was 21.5 days, while marine day sufficiency was put at 10.02 days, and total day sufficiency cumulatively stood at 31.57 days. As July 1st, the national PMS stock levels, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited had about 293 million liters in stocks. Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, 91 million liters in stock, while depot owners had about 753 billion liters in stock. And in a bid to align with recommendations set forth by the World Health Organization and global health experts, stakeholders in the health sector from 5 states of the Southeast region have advocated for 20% tax on sugar-sweetening beverages to reduce high sugar consumption by Nigerians. This call was made during the Regional Sugar Forum on Sugar-Sweetening Beverages, tax organized by Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, in conjunction with Nigerian or National Sugar-Sweetening Beverages Tax Coalition in Enugu State. The forum lamented the rising cases of overweight and obesity in children, adolescents and adults, type 2 diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular diseases, cancer and non-communicable diseases, among others, the citizens due to high consumption of high sugar. However, stakeholders sought the review of 10 naira excise duty as it falls short of WHO's recommendation and want FG to allow itself to be, not to allow itself to be blackmailed by profiteers who have no regard for decency of human lives. Well, let's get talking very quickly. Transcorp Group is one of Nigeria's leading conglomerate with investments in power, hospitality, and energy sectors. For the first half of the financial year, which ended June 30, 2023, the group recorded a 46% growth in revenue, surging 62.9 billion in H1 2022 to 82.1 billion the first 6 months of the current year. This represents a 31% growth year-on-year in its financial report filed with the Nigerian Exchange. The company recorded a 39% growth in profit before tax, 18.5 billion naira in 2023 compared to 13.4 billion naira reported in the previous year. Now, with me on the show live via Zoom to talk about all of this is the President, Group Chief Executive Officer of Transcorp Group, Dr. Owen Omogiafo. It's good to have you on the program. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Toulouse. I'm glad to be here.
I want to congratulate you first for your award, All Africa's Business Woman of the Year by African Financial Service Company. Yes, an ABSA group and all of that. How does this make you feel? Many will say this will definitely spur you to do more. Let's start on that note.
Thank you very much, Tulu. Indeed, when one gets these awards, because totally unexpected, it's a it's some sort of endorsement. It does encourage you to do more. It makes you recognize that, look, what we're doing is not going unnoticed. But even beyond that, it also reaffirms the strength of the brand we're building, and that is the strength of Transnational Corporation PLC, because it's about the company and I represent the company, which is Transcorp. So thank you so much, Tolu.
Great. Now let's get to business. Transcorp recently released some impressive numbers, I must say, in its 2023 half-year results. Now, I'd like to ask, let's start this conversation this way. How do you interpret these numbers as it reflects, as a reflection of your strategy?
So in Transcorp, first, we are patient investors, and we are driven by our investment philosophy of Afrocapitalism. We recognize that for Africa to truly be transformed, you have to have the patience, you have to have the resilience, and you have to invest in sectors that are catalytic to the growth of the nation. Following on that, we also strongly believe that when you have a focus on value, rent would follow. So like you mentioned earlier, today Transcorp has investments in power, hospitality, and energy. You will recall that in 2020, the world was ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic that affected everyone. Our hospitality business was severely impacted by it, and occupancy dropped to an all-time low of 5%. But understanding that we are resilient and we care for the long haul, we continue to drive our strategy of innovation, our strategy of value creation, our strategy of operational efficiency and customer excellence above every other thing. And of course, our people are right there in the heart of it. In power, driving the sense again of optimizing the investments that we have. Looking at the developments that we saw in the power sector in the past few years, we were spoiled. And indeed, we engage other investors to say, look, there's no way we can transform the Nigerian economy. We can transform the African economy until we fix the issues of power in Nigeria. And that led us to do further investments in our power business. First, of course, with the additional acquisition of Afam Power Genco in late 2020 into the first quarter of 2021, which we have continued to operate. And then, even with our existing investment, which is the Transcorp Power Ughelli in Delta State, we also did further investments to increase our available capacity. So working with that, and despite the challenges that existed in the first half of the year, especially as it relates to gas availability, noting that about 79% of the power in Nigeria is gas-fired, we were still able to optimize the assets that we have and be able to translate it to a revenue. And speaking still on the challenging microsystem that we have seen this year, I mean, we've seen things around the MPC rates, we've seen the unification of the foreign exchange, the petroleum subsidy, which has created, of course, understandably in the short term, challenges for organizations. But you see, what we've done is following that our strategy we've always had of your long-term players, decisions that you are making today, think long-term. We've been able to translate that strategy into the results that you have seen today. And I'll pick one especially in the hospitality business. Way back 7 years ago or more, even before I became a C member of Transcorp Group, the board of Transcorp Hotel had been pursuing an import substitution strategy. And today, here we are. We've been able to push down our imports, working with local vendors, driving a backward integration strategy. And now we have a business that is operating and is not as exposed to FX losses as you would find. So these are just some of the strategies that we've operated. And again, you can see it in the results that are coming up. Thank you, Tolu.
Great. Nigeria's power sector has been plagued by numbers of issues, of course, because you touched on that. Discos in particular, issues with payments, of course, these cost-reflective tariffs and all, prepaid meters, billings and all. But in spite of that, Transcorp and, of course, you led a consortium and you've come together to make this investment in the distribution sector. What does it mean for your strategy as a group? I mean, your new acquisition, AEDC, and its areas of coverage.
So Transcorp's purpose is improving life and transforming Africa. And like I said earlier, indeed, you cannot achieve any sustainable transformation until you fix the power sector. And this is what led us 10 years ago to participate in the first bid round privatization of the power sector. And if you recall as well, at that time, there was a lot of focus on generation. Now, as the industrialists that we are, the nation builders that we are, that we represent, Afro-capitalists, we had looked at it and said, okay, since generation is the issue, we will pitch our tent in generation. And we've done very well in there, if I may say so. Of course, earlier this year, Transcorp Power Limited received the certificate of discharge from further post-privatization monitoring from the National Council on Privatization, indicating that it had met and indeed surpassed expectations of the council. But as the years had evolved, you will see that while we had improved the generation capacity as a country, we were still seeing that the last mile users, power was still not getting to them in the manner envisaged. So when this opportunity came, and you have people who are interested in Nigeria, organizations, individuals who understand that we must fix the power sector, and the opportunity to invest in the distribution company, especially one as uniquely positioned as the Abuja distribution company, it was a no-brainer to say, look, this is an opportunity. Let's come in, let's partner with other stakeholders to indeed transform this company and create a sustainable form of access to electricity that can help to transform the environment. And of course, you see, once there's power, you will find that development will build around it. So that's what has led us. And again, because we are in Transcorp, we are driving an integrated energy strategy, power, oil and gas. So we are looking ultimately that even the gas that we use to fire our power system would be somewhat or to a large extent produced from our own field. So this is the end-to-end strategy that we are following in Transcorp. And that's what led us to say, look, if you're going to follow all the way through and you're going to optimize the assets that you have in your generating space, you have to have some play in distribution. And that play, of course, with the latest, some new developments in the power sector, whereby we're also pursuing bilateral engagements with DISCOs, so direct engagement between the generating company and the distribution company. We are pursuing that strategy of getting power to the last mile more effectively.
Interesting stuff. Now, but Nigeria has a new electricity act that paves the way for states to generate and, of course, distribute the electricity. I'm thinking, how will Transcorp be positioned to take advantage of this?
So Transcorp has 10 years experience in the generation, and now we're coming into distribution. When with the Electricity Act is very welcome. There are a number of things in that act beyond just the states, the empowerment of the states. So look at it this way, like I said previously, when you fix power, you fixed a lot of things. So we'll be looking at states that have the potential for economic growth and working with their governments. How do we come in? How do we partner to drive sustainable power within the region? There are a number of things. So if we have our Afam power today, we have 188 megawatts right now, but towards the end of the year, we will be at 424 megawatts. So it's a no-brainer to partner with the governments of River and say, how do we drive this? How do we make sure that we're able to engage with Port Harcourt Disco or have some sort of embedded generation in other states, even with the states where we're already operating, and invest in the infrastructure that will take the power from our generating plants straight to the end user. So there's a lot of opportunities in there. And you can see there are some states actually that had already started taking advantage of this, and we'll be working with them. And the one thing, of course, people can rest assured is that Transcorp has that pedigree, has that track record of not just creating value for the company, but creating value for stakeholders, including the communities within which we operate.
Very importantly, you mentioned two major policy changes under the new administration, which is the removal of fuel subsidy and, of course, the big one, unification of the foreign exchange. And, of course, let me say that, how would you tell us, or how has this really impacted your hospitality business? Do you think these policies will enhance domestic tourism?
The answer is yes. As we have seen of recent time, especially with the unification of the policy at the IATA level, that's the airlines, the cost of tickets have gone up highly. And if we follow using the data that we observed or we gathered during the COVID-19 restrictions, when people couldn't travel outside of the country, they looked locally. Because one thing man must do, woman must do, is that you must rest. You must take a break. And people are looking locally. Conferences are going to be looking locally to say, what do we have here? And we have seen those results looking at our occupancy in our Transcorp hotels, specifically the Transcorp Hilton Abuja, whereby during the COVID time, we're at 5%. And we took up those numbers in 2021. We came out, 2022, we finished the year with an average of 78%. And already for 2023, we're already tracking in the high 70s, close to the 80s on the occupancy level. But what do? It's not enough to just say because people cannot fly or people cannot go elsewhere, they're just stuck with you. Our strategy is to always create value. And of course, Dupe Olushola and her team, Dupe is the MD CEO of Transcorp Hotels PLC, and her team, they continue to redefine hospitality within that environment. And we are preparing actively to ensure that we have the right environment, the right atmosphere, the right equipment to be able to take on the additional demand that we'll see. One of such things, of course, is the 5,000 capacity event center that is being built currently at the Transcorp Hilton Abuja. I do invite you, in case you're in Abuja, you should please stop by and see how much progress has been done. Now, this event center is going to be commissioned in Q1 of 2024. And we begin to see conferences that typically don't happen in our country to start happening within Nigeria. And of course, when you have such things, other people benefit. It's not just about Transcorp. But if I have a 5,000 capacity event center, it means that I'm going to be looking for about 3,000 hotel rooms. And these are the kind of benefits that we will get. On the other hand, I should say that not as expected, the unification has also driven the costs up. There's cost inflation in the country, but we are managing it. Like I said earlier on, we had implemented import substitution, and we have very strong operational efficiency discipline that keeps our costs within a certain profile. As you can see from the figures that we released, our revenue grew and our net profit grew by 39% at a higher rate than the revenue growth, which goes to show how we are implementing these factors.
Beautiful stuff. Now, what are your future projections and, of course, aspirations for the group?
So for the group, we will continue on the path, on that purpose, improving lives, transforming Africa. And how? Our investments in the power sector will continue to consolidate, and we continue to build upon the competence that we have already. We'll continue to look at means, especially we're going to look at going into renewable energy, as well as leveraging the existing investments that we have. Our energy space, we are on the exploration space now and going to continue to drive that, because gas is a critical input to what we do. I will see how we're going to produce our gas, produce the hydrocarbon to create value for the nation. And last but definitely not the least, our hospitality sector. Hospitality sector, I already mentioned the event center. We have a 677-room hotel in Abuja that is the darling of the nation, if I do say so myself, and I'm sure you agree with me. But it should also note for Lagosians that we are building our 350-room, 5-star hotel right in the heart of Ikoyi. We've made very good progress, and by next year, we intend to start the project in earnest. And of course, because we are Transcorp, we look for value. We will be exploring other sectors within the country that would indeed catalyze our development as Nigeria and Nigerians.
Interesting stuff there now, and we'll keep a tab and keep following up on all of this development and hope to have you in to always, interpret it better for us and for Nigerians to understand what is going on. I must thank you so much, Dr. Owen Omogiafo. She is the President, Group Chief Executive Officer of Transcorp Group. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day and have a profitable one.
Thank you, Tulu.
All right there. Well, coming up on the show, we'll set an agenda for the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Uzoka Anite. We are going to look at the expectations from that sector. Yes, Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite. And joining me to do this is Dr. Chijoka Ikechukwu. He's the MD, CEO, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. He joins me from Abuja to continue this conversation. But that's after this break. Don't go away.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything.
If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all. Their demands, a familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Lagos is the most visited state in Africa as the fifth largest economy on the continent. Covering the state and its government is no mean feat, it's a busy beat. We go beyond the curtain of tapes to traveling far into the deep.
I want to thank the Lagos State government for the healthcare facility.
To bring stories that cut across all spectrums.
A greater Lagos shall be ours.
We tell you stories that define our collective well-being as Lagosians. I'm Adedoja Salamadeniyi. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
It's always a great morning on the TVC Breakfast Show.
Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
With the array of stories that matter and what's behind them.
As you say, the first blow indicates the direction of government.
Tell us what really is going on between your union and the federal government.
Once it's generated,
if you don't use it, it's waste. We are not even sure whether we have a strategy for security.
Are you saying that there was nothing wrong in that?
Was he the one driving the taxi?
Answer the question.
Reveal your morning with all you need to know.
Like
Yes, just mundane lyrics.
Yes.
How does that fit into your scheme of events or duties right now?
No chief of staff, no general has the right to call a governor to order. The governor has been elected by his people.
Start your day right, because this is the breakfast show that adds to your breakfast. TVC Breakfast, weekdays at 7 a.m. only on TVC News.
Every major news story is with many perspective and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did you... First, with breaking news.
Muhammad Ali was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky on January 17, 1942. His birth name was Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. He began training as an amateur boxer at age 12, and at 18 he won a gold medal in the light heavyweight division at the 1960 Summer Olympics and turned professional later that year. In his early years as a professional, Clay was more
We're glad to have you back. Now, Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment mandated to formulate policies that will help create wealth and employment, reduce poverty, and ensure enhanced service delivery to stimulate growth of domestic economy through industrialization, trade and investment. President Bola Tinubu has administered the oath of office of this ministry to Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite. Joining me to look at the task ahead of this new minister is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, a top member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu. Good afternoon, sir. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon, Tolu.
Well, let's start with the submission of the new minister yesterday, and I will just read straight up. She says she is assuring Nigerians that she would attract more investment into the country. Attracting investment at this time is very important so that at least we can shore up revenue, build more confidence and all of that. But what do you think? Some say it's a tea party. A lot of work needs to be done. How does it come to you? First, what are your expectations?
That ministry is a major driver of economic growth and economic activities of any country, especially ours that has had a few challenges here and there. Trade, investment and industry ministry has a lot of work to be done. And in fact, like I called it, a major driver. I agree that it is the responsibility of the ministry to invite a whole lot of investments into the country. First of all, you have to look at our trade balance. Where are we today vis-a-vis every other country? Because when you're talking about trade relationship between your country and the rest of the world, you have to take country by country. Where are we? Are we positive or negative with this country? You deal with it. And then what is it that we have to offer this other country for us to have a trade surplus as against trade deficit? So if we take them country by country, then you see that there are countries we have to work hard on making sure that we have a trade, we have a good balance in trade. So if we do that, we also have to, the ministry has to ensure that the manufacturing sector, don't forget that there's industry part of that portfolio, to make sure that everything that will make industry, the manufacturing sector, not to do well, they have to get into their issues and find out why certain companies are closing down in Nigeria and going somewhere else. In other words, if there's any company that says we're going to shut down our affairs in Nigeria, we need to go straight on with them into discussions with them to find out why they are closing down and see whether there are issues we can actually resolve with this particular company and a set of companies within that sector. So we need to look at what our purchasing managers index is looking like today and give ourselves targets, a quarterly target on how to grow our purchasing managers index. And so once we keep doing this, we create the avenue for investors to come into the country to invest. And if we create this avenue, we have to make it a level playing ground for a lot of investors. And so we discover that most of the things that will determine how well investors will come into the country will not only be determined by the trade and investment and ministry. There are many other ministries that are involved. The Ministry of Finance and other ministries that are related to the activities. Again, the minister has to create a way to have good relationship with the organized private sector, the chambers of commerce, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and other organized private sector areas, so that they will have one-on-one discussion, B2B meetings with some of these people, and actually get their feeling, to know what they feel about the entire system. What can the ministry do to improve business in Nigeria? And in fact, whenever there is any B2B meeting involving Nigeria or government-to-government meeting involving Nigeria and other countries, it is very necessary that the ministry must involve the organized private sector, because many times we see that when such meetings happen, only government officials will go. Immediately come back from such visits, everything discussed in those meetings will just end. So it's always good to go with practitioners in the various industries and the organized private sector, so that there will be a follow-up on whatever discussions that have been done. Again, there is a lot of interface that's going to happen between her and the CBN governor and the Ministry of Finance and other ministries, actually, as a matter of fact. So we expect that a lot of work has to be done, and we expect that when they are done in the right way, there will be a growth of our economy and improvement from where we are today.
Indeed, that's the ultimate aim. Economic growth, job creation, expanding GDP, reducing inflation, and we can go on and on, Dr. Ikechukwu, you know all of this. But let's talk about something very important I heard the minister also mentioned. It's about rebranding the country so that when we sell ourselves or when we want to attract this investment, people see us as people they can deal with. They believe in. We stand with contracts. We don't sign a contract today and tomorrow we are changing, what we already agreed on. So I want to ask you, what's your perception to the issue of rebranding our outlook?
For me, the best way to rebrand is to have a change of attitude towards business. Change of attitude towards relationship with other countries, change of attitude towards making sure that corrupt areas in doing business are removed. You can tell, it's just like if you own a restaurant and rebranding does not involve that you're going to put all the billboards all over the place or go to TV, go to CNN. It's for you to cook good soup and maintain good sanitary environment. If you do, the rebranding will involve that one person will tell the next person, oh, go to Nigeria, you will do this. I went to Nigeria, I invested this one. So once we are able to clean up our internal system, then rebranding is almost automatic. Then everything we're going to do in rebranding is only going to be an additional effort we're going to make. So let us go back to the drawing board and look at all those things that are bringing us bad image and then create opportunity for people to come and do business in Nigeria without losing money, without struggling. For example, the fact that people have done business in Nigeria and they cannot repatriate their forex, foreign currencies, is even if you do all the billboards in this world and go to CNN to talk about Nigeria, the one that they are seeing is the one they're going to talk about. More and more people will come because others have done business in Nigeria and they have succeeded. So what we need to do is just to make sure that our business environment becomes good for people to come and do business and they will smile instead of being sad doing business in Nigeria. So the best way to start in rebranding is just to make sure that all those things that cause dissatisfaction amongst people in Nigeria and foreign investors, we need to deal with them one after the other. Of course, the issues of ease of doing business, we need to come back to it again and pick them one after the other and put them into phases. Phase one, we're going to deal with this. Phase two, we deal with this. If we do that, that is the rebranding that is necessary for us to do. Because, the issue of rebranding had taken place one time in the past. A lot of funds were loaded into the issues of rebranding of our country, but nothing changed. So we need to start by changing ourselves and the ways we do business. That's the best rebranding we need.
Dr. Ikechukwu, let's touch on our background. At least let's stay on that for some minutes. She's a seasoned banker, financial consultant, and a former commissioner of economy in the Imo State, coordinating the economy in Imo State. And all of the feedback we're getting from all of this, that she did very well in all of these positions. Are you looking at that will also help shape maybe our relationship with civil servants and all of that? Many are talking about all of this, and the president clearly wants results. That's all he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yes, first of all, I can tell you that with her background and the experience she has, coming from the private sector into the public sector, there's something the private sector does, especially for somebody who has worked in a bank before. She will want results because private sector, especially banking, will actually talk about outcome, results, and achievement of targets. So I don't have any doubts concerning her drive, her possible drive to achieve results. So what she needs to do, what I think she needs to do is to do a lot of consultation. Consult a lot, not consultants. So I didn't say she consult with consultants. Consult a lot with parties that are necessary for results, for good results. When you consult with people, like I mentioned before, the organized private sector, you consult with civil servants, you consult with some practitioners in the industry, you consult with other economists like us, we're ready to render, even pro bono, certain services to ensure that things happen well and get results. So we expect that consulting will also always help, because nobody is an island of knowledge, nobody's an island of experience. People have other experiences they can always share in order for results to happen. So it is important that she consults well enough to be able to achieve results.
Let me take a step back and let's look at the ease of doing business initiative, because one of our major objectives, according to her, is to create a more business-friendly environment. And we know what PEBEC was all about during the previous administration, trying to straighten up things as it concerns businesses. I want to ask you, what more can be done in some straight terms? Remember, Karma was also reenacted. All of this was to make the business environment more conducive. What more are you expecting moving forward, Dr. Ikechukwu?
Yeah, my view is the fact that the ease of doing business in Nigeria is far from making sure you register your company in one day, or having all of them under one roof. It is completely far from that. The ease of doing business is a whole lot. It involves the fact that you want to get certain things done in a particular ministry, you want to get your payments done. You don't need to follow your file from one table to another, and you are paying some monies to certain people to follow your file. That is an example of ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is the fact that you want to do business in Nigeria, government policies don't change overnight, and you lose a lot of money. Monetary policy will not change overnight, and you're losing a lot of money. And the fact that you are going to one day wake up from sleep and know that the property you thought was property in the right place has been revoked, and you don't have enough NEPA, or what's it called now, power to run your company, and now the price of buying diesel to run the generators have changed. So people are losing a lot of money. FX rate is no longer 2, where you have official and parallel market. Now they have been unified, and then you are losing a lot of foreign currency. This is the ease of doing business. So we need to have a straightened policy, long-term policy that people can predict, to say, in the next 5 years, this will not happen. In the next 5 years, this will happen. And when I don't need to see anybody or give money to anybody before I get certain results of an action I want to take. If I say I want to invest in the government of one particular person, when another government comes, the policy is not going to change. So these are the things that people are so afraid of. Policy somersaults and change of policies from one government to another. These are the things, these are the issues. So it is far from having registration of companies done in 24 hours. That is not it at all.
Dr. Ikechukwu, let's move to speak around the non-oil space. There seems to be a lot of focus around how we can improve our made in Nigeria produce or products. She also talked about encouraging indigenous companies to grow at this time. Yes, she mentioned that too yesterday. But specifically about non-oil. At the time, I'm sure you're aware, we had export expansion funds that was released by the federal government to address some of these challenges and improve that space. If you were to advise, what can we do? A lot of issues here, Doc. Issues about competitiveness, issues about standards here, issues about quality of produce. You know all of this. We can go on and on, yes, so that our goods can stand on the same shelf with international, products of like terms. So what can we really do to meet up with all of these challenges and at the end of the day, improve whatever comes in from the non-oil space, manufacturing and all of that, SMEs?
Great. The first thing we need to do is to identify all those items, all those products that we have competitive advantage over virtually all countries of the world. We know we can produce sesame seed, we know we can produce cashew nut, we know we can produce palm oil and cocoa, as the case may be. Once we identify these ones, we need to set targets for ourselves to say, in the next 1 year, we want to be the largest producers and largest exporters of this particular product. We don't have to carry all of them at the same time. We want to be the largest exporters of this particular product. What we need to do to achieve this? Item 1, we have to do this. We need to create more funding into this area. We need to develop, bring in more participants in this area. We need to motivate them by giving them funding to do this. Government needs to get involved in one thing or the other. Once we concentrate, you see, an effort that was made, even though the implementation was not just well done, an effort that was made in growing rice in this country produced results. First of all, what we did was just close our borders to importation of rice, and then we started a process of making sure that local rice producers had certain incentives. Now, did it yield results? Yes, it yielded results, but probably there were some lapses in implementation of that. So we need to identify other areas. We said we are largest producers of yam in the world. We exported the first set of yams, and they were spoiled before they got to their destination. I have not heard any other thing that happened since then. Have we corrected what happened, what led to that particular thing that made their yams to rot before they got to their destination? So we can actually identify these items one after the other to ensure that we become the best in the world. In the next 3 years, 4 years, we want to be the largest exporters of 1, 2, 3, 4 items. We concentrate on them and push them into the market, train a lot of people in what they need to do, and bring in a lot of participants in this area. Once we do this, you see that the growth trajectory is going to be showing every day. We're going to be measuring ourselves every quarter. And you see that once we do that, we'll achieve results. But when we keep doing some lip service to a lot of things we want to do, we are going to be revolving around the same place all the time. So I think that's what we need to do, identify what we really need to export and produce, and put all the efforts into all those areas and look at the things we need to do to make them happen. These are the things we need to do.
Dr. Kechuku, let's wrap up this interview now. But before I let you go, let's touch on industrialization. That word, it comes up whenever we are talking trade, investment, and all of that. Everyone says we need an industrialized economy for us to move ahead. Where are we? And when do you think we'll get to this point?
If you remember many years ago, in the 70s, talking about early 70s and late 70s and early 80s, we had a good number of factories in Nigeria. These are stories you already know, and many Nigerians know. We know that somewhere in Kaduna, we used to have a road covered with all factories of textile. Somewhere in Ibadan, we used to have a lot of factories. In Bauchi, we used to have a lot of assembling plants, and many assembling plants, car assembly plants in Nigeria. So the first place to start with, again, is what went wrong. We need to identify what went wrong in order for us to start dealing with those things that went wrong, and in order for us to think about bringing in more people into manufacturing. Are there alternatives to the source of energy, source of power that is becoming the major problem in the manufacturing sector? Yes, there are alternatives. So what are those alternatives? We can decide that every city, and of course, this is not only federal, the state governments have a duty here, because if the federal government is making all the efforts and the states are still impoverished, then we're not doing anything. So every state governor must sit down and say, can I map out a place I can call an industrial park? And bring up shared services of electricity, shared services or utilities of electricity, water, roads, and telecoms, and other issues. And if every state has, just like we can have industrial area in Ogun State, and we have in Agbara in Lagos, why don't we replicate that in all the states? In fact, it doesn't even have to be the capital, where we have industrial park or industrial layout or whatever thing, so that we can provide all the infrastructure and all the facilities so that people can come in there, tap into already existing electricity or already existing power in order for their cost of production to come down. If we have people coming into such a place, everybody wants to buy property, even the government should be ready to give it to them at a very low rate to acquire properties in industrial parks in order for them to enjoy the shared facilities that are going to be there to reduce the cost of doing their business. If we do this, I can tell you, we're going to be having a lot of states producing a lot of things, and these are going to be items for export. And so I need the state government to actually complement the efforts of the federal government by creating their own industrial parks or industrial layouts and build facilities to be able to sustain whatever production that may have to happen to match whatever thing they can produce in those areas. Because what works for what Imo State may produce may be different from what Sokoto State or what Borno State may produce, depending on what they have competitive advantage over other states and over other countries. These are the ways to move forward, and we have to measure what we have achieved over the period. Measurement of progress is very important. We need to continue to do that.
Indeed, it's a running discussion. We'll keep at it and keep setting this agenda, letting the ministers understand that, yes, they need to hit the ground running. They've all said they will do that. We are watching, and we'll keep bringing up all of the issues surrounding every of the sector on TVC News and, of course, on Business Nigeria. Thank you so much, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, a top and arrow member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time as usual.
Thank you very much, Tolu. Thank you.
Well, it's that time where we look at market figures and see what is playing out. The market is still in green. My colleague is live from the exchange today, Efyonga Ekop. He will be breaking it down for us. Efyong, we've been able to stay in green. It seems this week is going to be different. Well, what is happening? Take us through what is responsible for all of these positives that we see, at least marginally at the moment.
Well, it is the second day this week that we've traded in the positive territory, though the volume that we've handled in the 2 days seems to be of average level. Today we are trading about 322 million units of shares, valued a little above 3 billion naira. You know, this is really small when you are talking about what we've been doing, 6 billion, 8 billion in the last month or so. It's an indication that fund managers are actually reducing the volume of risk that they take in the market, and then the money also coming in also being slashed for so many reasons. Some points to inflation hitting deep and hitting hard on investment funds, and also exchange rate issue, which is really key. All of the two combine and they worry investors. But as it is, market is closing positive today, basically on the huge achievements by Bua Cement. Bua Foods. That particular big company has been able to get almost 8% in trading profit, and it's been able to also draw some other manufacturing and lightweighted securities like ABC Transport, CAP, that's the Pence company, and all of them are combining, and we have a positive growth today in the markets, though of the average level. Tolu?
So we have ministers now, and of course, and I remember the last report you gave us, I think late last week, was the excitement with the person of Mr. Wale Edun becoming the coordinating minister of the economy and, of course, minister of finance. What more are you hearing around that, Efyong?
The excitement is what the stockbroking community wants to build up to. Some of them who have spoken with me before I came up, they want him to, visit the markets at the soonest time. And I do hope they have so many problems that they want to, put into his hands to be able to solve for both the markets and the economy. They are happy that one of their own is up there, and they expect that he will be giving the federal government good advice and then working out good financial policies that will help the growth of the larger economy. It is the bigger economy that is of problems, not just the markets here. The market on its own is, trying to keep going. The regulators are doing their best, but that's the nuclear side of the economy. The larger economy needs a lot of fixing. Talk about transport problems, the electricity issue that you have mentioned, then the forex. All of this we need to fix and then allow manufacturers to have easy access to production items so that they be able to keep Nigerians in employment. Otherwise, we are not going to have it easy if we do not employ many of our youths that are scattered all over the states. Tolu?
I must thank you so much, Effiong Ekop, for your detailed analysis as usual. Let's take you outside our shores now. Leaders from 5 developing nations accounting for nearly half of the world's population are gathered in Johannesburg for the 15th BRICS Summit. With expansion on the emerging markets groupings, Africa's economic development, war in Ukraine, and relations with the West's topping agenda of the summit. South Africa's president and current BRICS chairperson, Cyril Ramaphosa, is hosting leaders of the group, investors among others. This year's edition is the first in-person summit after the COVID-19 pandemic. The Deputy Director General of South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry, Lerato Mataboje, said decisions are expected to be taken on decoupling global trade from the dollar and expansion as a growing number of countries are queuing to join the bloc.
There's quite a number of African countries will be represented at the highest levels. Also from, the rest of the world, we have to make sure that we all speak decisively around how we grow the global economy, that we all speak decisively around how that growth is inclusive of all the marginalized people and the poorest of the poor that are always left behind in these sorts of conversations and in the processes that we put in place.
BRICS is a good initiative that Africa finds to be a very friendly business environment that creates an opportunity where through these foreign direct investments we are able to create jobs for our young people, create opportunities for our young people and provide livelihoods.
Asian stock market snapped an 8-day losing streak today, helped by a rebound and beating down Chinese shares, while benchmark treasury yields scaled 16 years high on concerns that interest rates will stay high for quite a while. S&P 500 futures turned positive late in Asian trade to rise 0.1%. European futures were last up 0.6%. FTSE futures rose 0.3%. Sovereign yields in Australia, Korea, New Zealand, and Japan also rose on Tuesday, with 10-year Japanese yields hitting their highest since 2014 at 0.66%. The Hang Seng was doing its best to snap a 7-day losing streak and was up 1.3% this afternoon after a volatile session of swinging between gains and small losses. Technology giant Microsoft has submitted a new deal to buy Activision Blizzard after its original $69 billion bid was rejected by the UK competition watchdog. The Competition and Markets Authority confirmed today that Microsoft's initial offer for the Call of Duty maker had been blocked. It will now reveal the new debt deal. Activision's existing or new games stored in the cloud, the pledge, which will last 15 years, will not cover Activision's PCs and console games in European Economic Area. Microsoft's deal to buy the Call of Duty, a maker struck last year, was set to be the biggest of its kind of gaming industry history. Former Bank of England's Governor Mark Carney has been named chairman of the new board of directors at U.S. financial information and media firm Bloomberg. Bloomberg's head of products, Vladik Katucho, was also appointed as chief executive officer of the major shakeup of the company's management. The media firm founder, Michael Bloomberg, made the announcement in an email to staff. The former BOE boss had previously worked with Mr. Bloomberg on climate-related projects. The reshuffle will see more new board members being appointed in short order, while existing members will be given honorary positions. Mr. Carney is expected to continue in his role as chairman of Canadian investment firm Brookfield Asset Management. And crude oil prices edged lower today as markets waited to see if Iraqi exports through the Sayan oil terminal would resume, which would ease the supply tightness caused by OPEC Plus quotes, while a faltering Chinese economy weighed on the outlook for demand. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude fell to sell at $80.48 with a decline of 0.30%. Brent also experienced a price decline of 0.41% to sell at $84.11. Bonnie Light recorded an upward price review of 0.81% to sell at $86.98 per barrel. And for the OPEC basket, crude dealers are offering $86.17 with a decline of 0.91%. Well, that's our show today. Time flies. We're done. I'll see you.